to say was, how the hell do you let that guy go?
Yeah.
Jeremy Fowler is here for much more on this. I don't think anybody believed we'd get here with this trade, but I also don't think anybody believes Jerry and that like this is all part of some ultimate grand plan. Can you walk us through the timeline of how this trade happened?
Yeah, really this all went down, on Tuesday. So Micah Parsons' camp came with an olive branch and said, hey, look, like we can work something out still. I know there's been a lot said in the media, a lot of miscommunication, but there's still a chance to hammer out a deal. The Cowboys at that point said we have moved on. We plan to trade him. That's in part because there was no traction on a deal ever. There was really no negotiating going on because whatever Jerry Jones thought as far as what kind of deal he cut in April with Parsons in his office, he was holding true to that. Parsons was never taking that deal because his agent was involved. And so they figured, hey, let's just cut our loss here. We're not going to get a deal done. Let's get the best offer we can. The Packers kept hammering, kept calling. And Stephen Jones, the team CEO, told teams like it's got to be at least 2 ones and at least an impact defensive player up front. The Packers gave the best offer.
The timing of this, you mentioned April, right? Because I'm sure they could have got a lot more with a trade in April before the draft. So what's been the league reaction on the timing of this and this actual trade?
It's funny, actually, to that point, I asked somebody with the Cowboys about that. They said, in April, we were still thinking we were going to sign Micah. We didn't want to trade him. But the Cowboys actually believe they got more by waiting. That's just a team philosophy. A lot of teams don't agree with that.
No.
They believe that, like, if you forget about the draft months later, teams are less attached to their draft picks. So we'll see how that goes. But I actually talked to some teams that don't hate this deal if you have to trade him. Nobody thinks that they should actually trade him. Parsons.
Yeah.
But 2 ones and Kenny Clark is actually not all that bad. It's not, like, terrible. It's not great. Part of the issue is they have to pay him $47 million a year, so it's a sliding scale. It's not like the old days where you only have to pay the guy $10 million, and we'll give you 3 or 4 first-round picks. It's just different now.
I come back to one thing when we talk about the first-round picks, though. These picks are going to be in the 20s.
Yes.
Maybe in the 30s. Considering how good the Packers
They're
are.
always in the playoffs.
So then suddenly you lose value there. That's
the criticism. If you would have opened it up maybe in March and April, maybe you could get a little better positioning.
Yeah. Parsons, the richest contract for a non-quarterback ever. Packers GM Brian Gutekunst today.
The chances of these things kind of happen are pretty slim, and I kind of think that was my mindset the whole time. I was going to keep the conversations going because of the uniqueness of the player. I don't think it was really until the last few days that I actually thought, hey, there's an opportunity here to really to close this thing out. This move was not just for this season, right? It was for multiple seasons. But no, I feel good about our roster. I felt great about our roster before that happened, right? So I think we have a very good team. I think that they got a long way to go to become the kind of team we want to be. But I think that potential is there. And I think adding Micah is just one of those things that can help that. Again, I do think this guy's going to add to our football team, and I think he's going to certainly help us win football games. But I think that, I just don't really believe that one player puts you over the top, so to speak. I never believed in that. But the biggest thing is going to be these guys coming together and putting their individual goals aside and deciding they want to win.
So again, we're waiting for Micah Parsons to take the podium officially as a Packer, but he did have some parting words for Cowboys and Cowboys fans last night on Instagram, saying in part, quote, "I never wanted this chapter to end, but not everything was in my control. My heart has always been here, and it still is. Through it all, I never made any demands, never asked for anything more than fairness. I only asked that the person I trust to negotiate my contract be part of the process." And of course, he's talking about his agent, David Mulligetta. Jerry Jones has talked about that as well, as we officially bring Jeremy Fowler back in to unpack this a little bit more. Jerry felt like they had something done in April, but then, of course, Michael wanted to get his agent involved, and Jerry kept calling him this guy. Then this guy gets involved, this guy being the agent. That's literally what you pay him for.
Yeah.
I think, Kevin, I don't think anybody actually thought we'd get here.
No.
Right? People sort of thought he was building up the theatrics, but ultimately,
we saw that with Dak and CeeDee Lamb, right?
We saw it with Emmitt Smith back in the day. What went so wrong in these negotiations that you sent your best player packing?
So both sides had just very different stories as to what happened with Micah Parsons in Jerry Jones' office working out a potential deal. The Cowboys really feel like Micah Parsons not only participated in a contract extension, but initiated talks, had a lot of information about what he wanted, and went back and forth with the Cowboys. Now, this is Dallas's side of things, right? They would say privately. Where Parsons' side is like, that's not true. Micah Parsons was brought in. He thought he was talking about leadership in the season with the Cowboys. Then all of a sudden they're asking him about his contract. So whatever happened behind closed doors in April was a deterrent here, because when the team figured out, like, okay, we've talked to the player about his contract, they can dig in on that and say, well, we got the player and that's all we have to offer. And, the agent's like, well, I have to get involved. I mean, this is my deal. So it was problematic from the start. Once that happened, that was just, it killed all momentum. And then since then, there really was no negotiating. The Cowboys just figured, let's just do what we can to get some value here.
Okay, and the trade happens a week before the season opener against the Eagles, where the Eagles are going to unveil the banner of winning the Super Bowl. And the Cowboys are talking about, hey, we're a playoff contender. How is this playing around the entire National Football League? What's been the reaction, the general reaction to this trade and the timing of it?
Not great, Kevin. Not great.
Yeah.
I mean, the reaction, I would say league circles are not as down on the trade as like the media and some people kind of reacting to this on social media and all that you see out there, that the Cowboys have made the worst decision ever. They don't think it's great. Like they didn't get enough probably for the liking of, for the caliber of a player like Micah Parsons. You probably need to get more than 2 first-round picks. But teams understand that it's hard when a player like this needs to get $47 million per year. Like, that market is crazy. That's a lot of money that teams have to allocate, so they don't want to also give up, say, 3 or 4 first-round picks or day 2 picks on top of that to get a deal done. So Dallas did the best they could. Some execs I've talked to don't have a problem with it. Others say, like, you just can't simply trade a Hall of Famer in his prime. You can't do that. You got to get something done, or at least draw it out. Maybe let him play a little bit of the season, see if he holds out, and then franchise tag him if you have to, but you don't let him walk out the door.
Well, not only do you not let him walk out the door, I think there's some people going, you also don't let him go to an NFC rival, a team that you play in week 4, a team that handed you one of your worst and most embarrassing playoff losses a couple of years ago.
That's the thing.
How the heck did the Packers get this done?
They were pretty relentless. So I was hearing like the Packers were low-key kind of scouring the earth for pass rush help all offseason. I wouldn't be surprised if they called in guys like Myles Garrett, Max Crosby. Like, they were looking around a little bit because they knew they were a piece away. They really like defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley. They think he can be a future NFL head coach. They wanted to get him one more chess piece to go with Rashawn Gary and Xavier McKinney and some of those guys on defense. They feel like they've drafted well enough where they got a hit with Matthew Golden, that first-round pick at receiver. They have some good pieces on offense. Defensively, they wanted to get better at pass rush. They just felt like they weren't good enough. They don't have a lot of other guys they have to pay right now. They've taken care of a lot of that.
Yeah.
So they had money to dedicate to a player of this caliber.
It helps, too, that you have a very young wide receiver group as well, that you don't have anybody on a max deal looking down the road asking for $30 to $35 million, right? And you take care of your quarterback, and then you have this window here to win and win now.
Yeah.
What's the window for the Cowboys now? Because you're paying Dak Prescott the most money in the entire league annually, and you gave CeeDee Lamb his deal. Where are they right now? Do they just feel like they're going to outscore everybody like the Bengals thought last year?
Yeah, it went well for them.
Yeah.
They're probably going to have to. I mean, they addressed the run defense. They've been bad against the run for 2 years, really.
Yep.
So they are right that they need to get better there. Kenny Clark alone is not going to solve that. Now they're lacking on pass rush. They feel like they have a lot of young pass rushers they really like, but nobody's Micah Parsons, so you can't expect that to offset what just happened. They're going to have to score. George Pickens has the chance to have a huge year alongside CeeDee Lamb, so it's going to have to be a lot of 33 to 27 type games probably.
It was looking like even if Micah was going to re-sign with the Cowboys, it was looking like he wasn't going to be available for week 1 based on the fact that he has not played or practiced at all in the training camp. Now he's going to a new team. He has to learn a new defense. What are you hearing about when we could potentially see Micah Parsons on the field and whether he'd be ready week 1?
I think the Packers will go slowly with this. They'll be cautious. Maybe they get him to the point by Friday or Saturday, if he's progressed enough, where he could play a package of plays, like get him in there on some third downs. He could probably handle that. He's an elite athlete, of course. But make no mistake, a week ago this time, he was eating nachos and laying on a training table in that preseason game. So now I do know a lot of Dallas people thought, despite all the turmoil, that he was secretly getting himself ready to play. Like, he was doing 2-a-days, he was lifting, he was running, he was training, he was in every meeting. So he did mentally and physically try to get himself ready. He just hasn't practiced. So can he check that off over the next week?
Suddenly my back feels better, right? Like
I know.
all of a sudden, like,
back
now it feels fantastic.
Whatever. I know
right?
someone at this desk that hopes he ain't ready week 1. Oh, yeah, no, well, you're not playing it. Yeah, he doesn't care anymore. Like, he doesn't care anymore.
It's a quick
He's
turnaround.
happy.
Lane Johnson
He's so
feels
happy.
really good right now. Let me tell you
You might
that.
get bailed out by the Thursday night game.
Right, exactly. Jay Fowl, appreciate you so much, friend. Of course, again, we are waiting on Micah Parsons to take to the podium to talk for the first time as a Packer, and we will bring you that in its duration and live when it happens. But when you talk about the impact, the trade had a huge impact, at least on the Packers' odds this season. They're now tied with the Lions as the NFC North favorites. They moved from 20-1 to 14-1 to win the Super Bowl, and they're